Well, welcome back again this week. I've got a number of things, a potpourri, if you will, one really important one that I'm going to have to probably interrupt some of this to get to. But to start off with Victory Day in Moscow, and everybody chastised Obama for not attending and standing on Lenin's tomb or whatever. But the Victory Day in Russia brought out the usual hammers and sickles and all of that, and big floats of Joseph Stalin and more hammers and sickles. Communism is not dead in Russia, never has been dead in Russia. Anybody that believes that has just not been doing his homework, at any rate. Another thing too is there's an article. It is an article this morning that Merkel rebukes Putin at tribute, and it's got Merkel shaking her finger at Putin. Well, I don't know about you that are married, but anytime your wife shakes her finger at you doesn't mean that the marriage is over, any more than the marriage is over here, where you've got two ex-communists supposedly disputing one another. Don't believe it for a minute. We see headlines like this: the United States starts new training for Syrian rebels. Of course, they're moderate, you understand. Iraq begins training of Sunni tribal fighters. And the situation going back and forth in all of this is so confusing that it boggles the average individual, because they don't know what's going on. And they don't know what's going on because they're being kept in ignorance. It all leads towards a new world order. That's what the whole thing is, no matter what is going on. And here we're training Sunnis in one spot and Shiites in another. We're helping Sunnis in one spot. We're fighting them in another, so on and so forth. It's all a master plan to bring all of the Middle East into one umbrella region as part of the regionalization of the globe towards a new world order. This one guy had to kind of chuckle. It said, "Why Europe's left have become serial losers." In other words, a lot of the elections lately in Europe, the socialists have not fared well. Well, that's because the so-called right wing in Europe is beginning to look more like socialists. So it doesn't matter which socialist party, whether it's socialist heavy or socialist light, wins, they are still moving towards regionalization solidly of Europe. And sort of like Democrats and Republicans in this country. The American people get out and elect a Republican because they think he's going to be better than a Democrat, and in many instances he is. But their leadership is not. It's become a real problem. Here's the front page of the Wall Street Journal, and I suppose I'll have a few comments over my comments on this one. But it shows Raul Castro meeting with the Pope. And the headline says, "Cuba's Raul Castro lauds Pope, says he'd consider return to the church." Now, I don't know what's really going on here, particularly whether Raul Castro is because of his mortality, he's getting old, is thinking about death, and now is thinking about returning to the church, or whether the Pope is moving closer to Raul Castro. I believe it's kind of both the same. But, you know, there are a lot of funny things going on relative to the Vatican these days. Just ask any Catholic about it, and if they've got any sense at all relative to world events and the ecology movement and global warming and all the rest of that stuff, they know what's been happening lately in the Vatican is not good. You know, one of the things that we tend to, well, we don't forget it because we don't know it. But the beginning of this conspiracy that we're fighting essentially started from the Illuminati. Not quite, but that's close enough. What a lot of people don't know is that there were lodges in France comprised of French Catholic priests who were Illuminists. And they were not the ones taken to the guillotines around as other priests and nuns were, along with the royalty. They were left to keep going. And these are the individuals that started to promote Catholicism as we see today. Same in Mexico. When Juarez and others went into, even as late as the mid-20s, went in and killed priests and nuns during various revolutions, they didn't kill the priests and nuns that were leftists. They allowed them to live. They just killed the priests and nuns that were really good traditional Catholics. So what was left was liberation theology, as they call it. And in liberation theology today is, they say some guy in Peru started that movement. Well, it's not true. Liberation theology has been basically the leftover of where they didn't kill off really good priests and nuns. At any rate, so anything that's been going on lately in the Catholic Church relative to these things, the root of it comes from there. We could spend a lot of time just talking about that one thing, but if you go and study the Carbonari and their attacks on the Catholic Church and that sort of thing after the French Revolution, you will get a better sense of what has happened inside the Catholic Church over the last 100 years. One of the things that we need to point out, and we've done it before, but the question has come up increasingly now, because Carly Fiorina, who's declared for the presidency, the only woman on the Republican side, breaks with GOP on trade deal. And she asks the question, she said she raised questions about whether China could someday join the TPP, the Trans-Pacific Partnership, though Mr. Obama has tried to sell the deal as a way to counter China's growing influence in the region. She said the China question is one of too many unknowns, raising the specter of the secrecy in which these so-called partnerships, they're actually treaties, but they are partnerships in the sense of where they're going. The secrecy in the negotiations is not good. We don't know what's in those pacts. Many people are starting to ask questions, particularly on some of the WikiLeaks things that have come out. Here's a letter, an open letter from the United States Senate from Jeff Sessions to the President of the United States, Obama. And his fourth point in here, he says, regarding China, can TPP member countries add new countries, including China, to the agreement without future congressional approval? A very good question. Now, the whole thing that's revolving here is the idea that the TPP is somehow an American initiative, and that the other initiatives being promoted by China are the Chinese initiatives. We've got to work against those. We've got to do the TPP to stop China's initiative, and that's the story. They're trying to get conservative Americans and conservative congressmen and senators believing that the TPP is a block to China. Nothing could be further from the truth, ladies and gentlemen. In my haste to come to the studio this morning, I could not get all the documentation together to prove something to you, but this is the truth. The TPP is the first step of a strategy to include China and Russia in an Asian partnership, an economic integration of all of Asia that will include China and Russia. We've seen emails coming out of the White House. We've seen the Brookings Institute and Council on Foreign Relations working papers on these things, all recommending that the TPP be the first step towards total integration of the economies of the Pacific under one international agency, to where that agency would deprive the American people and the Congress of the United States to regulate our own economy. If you believe in regulating the economy, I don't. I think it should be free. But the point is that it would be out of our hands regardless. We would no longer have free enterprise in the sense that we believe in free enterprise. It would come under control of this international agency that, as a result of the TPP, and on the Atlantic side, as a result of that particular partnership. So it is a lie to believe, or it is a lie that is being believed, that the TPP is counter to China. It is the first step to becoming involved with China in this deal, and Russia as well. Until next week, we'll see you then.